Welcome to the Workforce Situation Room, where we spotlight some of the promising and innovative solutions that address some of our most pressing workforce and economic challenges. Our mission at Workforce Solutions Borderplex is to power businesses to prosperity by empowering people with tools and opportunities to reach their potential in the workforce. I'm Bianca, your host, and I stand alongside our ladies of leadership at Workforce Solutions Borderplex with Leila Melendez, our CEO, Alma Aranda, Workforce Development Director, and Karina Castillo, our Senior Research Analyst. In this room, we all believe every situation has a solution. For today's episode, here's the situation. All right, so we're back on the Workforce Situation Room with our Women in Economic Development series. This is one of the many sound bites that we'll be featuring for Women's Month this year. And with us today, we have some pretty powerful women on the forefront of economic development. We have Susie Byrd, who is the Director of Economic Development and Workforce Excellence with the Aerospace. And then we have Mary Helen Aldeis, who's a program director for the Women's Border Center. And of course, we have our CEO, Leila Melendez, on the line as well. So we really want to just get started with, first, aside from introducing all the powerful women in economic development, we want to explain to listeners who typically hear more about workforce development and workforce job seekers, businesses. We really are trying to educate the audience as to how we're getting involved with economic development and pretty much a definition of economic development and how it kind of touches every single industry that we're speaking with. So Susie, if we can start with you, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do? I know you have a long-standing career with politics and different municipalities, but I mean, how did you end up in aerospace and how are you involved in economic development?
I'm so glad to join you guys today to talk about our work, which is really a partnership that includes Workforce Solutions Borderplex, the city, the county, Rio Grande Council of Governments, the El Paso Chamber. And our goal really is two things. One is to work with our existing manufacturers, our small and medium manufacturers that are in this region, that are resilient and strong and nimble, and work with them to make them more competitive in their existing markets, and then help them to grow into aerospace and defense markets. So we have developed a whole course of services that are available to support that growth, particularly from UTEP, from the Aerospace Center, our sister center, the WM Center for 3D Innovation, to support their technology and their innovation, to essentially become their R&D partner to help them grow. We're also working with the city, the county to help provide infrastructure support. And then we're with Workforce Solutions Borderplex, really what drives competitiveness these days is talent. And we know that in West Texas, we have the talent that is desperately needed in aerospace and defense markets. So we're working with all of our partners to include Workforce Solutions Borderplex to skill that talent specifically for this workforce demand. So that's what we're doing.
Definitely a lot. So in terms of, you say aerospace and defense markets, can you elaborate a little bit on that, on what that means? I mean, there are people that may have never heard of the term, but I would say that when I first heard it and looked it up, I mean, I saw a bunch of, jets and rockets, and there's just so much involved. So can you give us maybe a visual of what it is what that means?
Sure. So aerospace essentially relates to anything that's above ground systems that, fly or are shot or are, satellites, they're rockets, they're systems that essentially occupy everything that's above the ground. And then obviously defense systems are those things that support our defense industrial base that help ready our nation in a defense posture to continue to lead in the world. And some of those things are kind of in both markets, and some of them aren't. But we're essentially what we have done through the two centers, the Aerospace Center and the WM Center for 3D innovation at the University of Texas at El Paso is developed these very unique set of research capabilities over the last 20 years. And now we're putting those research capabilities to work for our small and medium manufacturers in the region. And it's coming at a moment when there's huge national demand for aerospace and defense systems. And we're starting to see sort of a degrading of our defense industrial base. So really need many, many more small and medium manufacturers to participate to support that national effort. So it's really coming at a moment of sort of urgent national priority. And then we know in the region from visiting our small and medium manufacturers, we have incredible capabilities in the region. But they're currently serving mostly markets south of the border, whether it's biomedical, automotive, electronics, appliances. But a lot of the capabilities that they have are really in demand in aerospace and defense. But there's a lot of things that you need to do to really be prepared on the business side, and then also on the capabilities side to be able to support aerospace and defense markets.
And it's definitely a growing industry here, and a very good news for the local economy, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm gonna wiggle over to Mary Helen, who works at the Women's Border Center, the Business Border Center. Mary, and you work primarily with businesses. You work primarily with women. Can you tell us a little bit about a day in the life of Mary Helen and how it is that you're involved with economic development?
Sure. And hello, everyone. And it's such a pleasure to be with you today. And a little bit more about our Women's Business Border Center. It's a co-joint partnership with the Small Business Administration Office of Women's Business Ownership and also the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I've been the program director for 10 years now, but I've started my career 17 years ago at the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And the missions align because this is a federal program from our government that knows that our key individuals need support services. They need assistance. They need someone that they can privately discuss their business venture and really help them and guide them along the way. And so with our program, we do focus on helping people get started in business, whether it's in a commercial front, whether it's a home-based business. And I really fell in love with my career here at the Hispanic Chamber because I always wanted to help. I actually have a social worker's degree. And when I did my internships, I just knew that that wasn't an industry for me. And that just gave me that insight. So that's why I'm a big proponent for internships. I mean, I think they're needed. It gives you that light if you really want to go into that profession. And so I just really fell in love with our entrepreneurial technical assistance centers and the services that we offer that is open to the public at large. Yes, we do have a women's focus, but just know that anyone can access these services. And whatever our government is providing as a support to our local businesses, then we're the ones that can relay that information.
Awesome.
So we do it in a privately setting. I just wanted to add just one more thing, private setting, and we conduct programming, sessions, trainings, and just to provide that forum and venue for people to access the information that they're needed for business.
So, Mary, since you're kind of on the front lines when it comes to women and minority businesses, I mean, what are you seeing that are the biggest barriers for them to break through in the business industry or any business industry? And what are specifically maybe some of those support services?
I just feel that, business is not a cookie cutter process. It's not a cookie cutter approach. There is a lot of things to consider and factor. And I think it's a very overwhelming for someone that wants to dabble into starting their business. But we're true to say that anybody can do it, right? You access the services, you access resources, you access key mentors in business. And of course, you can make your business enterprise successful. And so I just wanted to share that. But of course, it's overwhelming with information and connecting all of the dots. What are my requirements? What are the red tape? When we were coming out of our pandemic, all of that safety precautions as well, and how to protect their customers, their employees. And so I just think it's for them to know, to have that self-confidence that they can pursue their entrepreneurial dream, and just putting the right things in place before they take that leap of faith.
And would you happen to, I mean, if you happen to have the data as far as like how many women are business owners in the area? How many are minority?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, of course, we have old census demographics, but the last time we took, there's close to almost 50,000 businesses in our area in El Paso that are women-owned or minority-owned. And of course, they're
Wow.
growing tremendously. And this is, and I just want to say El Paso's a very great place for business. And we all know that, right? We're born and raised here. I know I am. But there's so much potential and growth. And now that we have these digital capabilities for business, they don't have to just, provide services here. We have wonderful federal contractors that do business all over the country and the globe too.
I didn't know that there were that many business owners in El Paso that were women. 50,000 can wear that hat. That's awesome. Well, we're talking about, women representation. Susie, you're a female in the aerospace industry, which is primarily male dominated, whether it's aerospace, whether it's defense. What's that been like, or what are your observations in that sense? Because that's something that obviously as workforce developers, we're trying to break through and we're trying to shift in terms of women's representation in those industries. What are you seeing?
We actually think really one of the biggest values that our region brings to the table is the fact that we are a community that honors female leadership. We're a community that provides lots of pathways for economic mobility for anybody in the, we're a very inclusive, very welcoming community. And so again, at this same moment where, there's huge demand in aerospace and defense manufacturing, lots of jobs that are going unfilled, and a sector nationally that is primarily Anglo, primarily male, and many of them at kind of retirement age. And we have done a very poor job as a country at building new pathways into that sector. So we really feel like we have the secret formula for that because we are West Texas, we are El Paso, and that's what we're really good at. So the Aerospace Center and the WMKEC Center for 3D Innovation here at UTEP have, for the last decade and a half, been placing into aerospace and defense markets and the aerospace and defense workforce people that are from this area. So they're primarily Latino, a high percentage are Latina, 30%, I believe, that have worked in our labs, that have graduated from our classrooms, that are joining that workforce. But their contributions to that workforce are in other communities. And that's really where we began this economic development work, was working with Congresswoman Escobar, with other folks in the region, to really figure out what is the formula that provides many more opportunities for our skilled engineers to put their talents to work for us here in the region. And so that's really kind of where we started this pathway. And very similar to the Hispanic Chamber, we recognize that the economic engine of our region can be our small and medium companies. We think if we give them a path to grow from 10 employees to 20 employees to 150 employees, and we do that over and over again, by building their capabilities, by building their customer contacts, we can really create something very special and valuable here in the community. And so I think really what this community has taught me, and I think has taught too many people and really needs to teach the nation is that we are a community that values all talent. And we open doors for women. We open doors for Latinos. We open doors for Latinas. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to succeed.
I love that. I love that. And thinking in terms of economic development, I know that, we're still in the early stages of implementing the Build Back Better grant and all of the support that's been coming in the past year. But if you could, take a seat back and visualize what El Paso's economy will be should all things go as planned and everything works out beautifully, if not better, where do you see the economy in 10 years, 15 years? And this is a question for both of you.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go first, and then I'll turn it over to Mary Helen, who I know is doing a lot of work towards this side too. I mean, I really think what we envision is that we would transform into a knowledge-based economy. And all of my great data comes always from Workforce Solutions, Borderplex, and Alma, another great female leader who loves to send me lots of data. I think one of the things that she continues to harp on and to sort of really draw policymakers' attention to is the number of the percentage of STEM occupations in the region. So we're currently, I think, at about 4%. And really, if you look at that and sort of the lack of advanced industries in that region, that paints a bleak picture for us in terms of our income, our incomes, our sort of overall prosperity over time. And so our focus is really on increasing the number of STEM occupations as a percentage of the overall economy. We believe that we need to get to 25%, which is it's like on steroids. But we know that in doing that, that we will create abundant opportunity, and that we know also that abundance always transforms to the families, right? So it's not just a person who you're taking from a low income to a middle income pathway with lots of opportunities to grow. You're bringing their whole family with them. So, and not just the core family, but the extended family. So we want that to ripple in a way that all of us can be proud of 10 years from now. And we want to find a way to make sure our talent has a chance to put their talents to work here in the region, or leave and come back to us because they know that there's a job and an opportunity for them here. And all the most exciting jobs are here.
See, that's a big one, right? And I totally see the need and the necessity for leaving El Paso for a little bit to learn a little more about other cultures, other states, the way systems work in other environments, especially as a minority or a female. But bringing that back home, so getting the souvenirs from all of these places we visit and bringing that and contributing that back home. I think that was one of the best things that I know I was able to see. Having lived here most of my life and left for a while to live in Austin, coming back was like, oh, we can do this and we can try that. And we could. So I love that you added that towards the end. How about you, Mary? What do you see as the perfect picture for El Paso economy when it comes to businesses, women-owned businesses?
Sure. Just really accessing all the key resources and programs that are developed for women entrepreneurs. There are so many, there's so much information, right, with Google and the web. But I just really would love for our community to feel confident enough to entrust certain resource providers. El Paso is a very unique city, and we have a lot of different federal resource programs that are here and available in our local market. In other cities, and visiting with my counterparts throughout the country, they have to commute or just offer remote services. And in our community, they like that in-person interaction. They want that handheld grassroots type of, assistance and reaching out to those local communities and to make sure that we're providing them that quality information. But I guess my future hopes is for our businesses really to set up their operations and really to try to cover everything when they're first implementing their business. And I see that as one of the big challenges for our new businesses. And that's the primary clientele that we service through our
Mm-hmm.
Women's Center is startups from 0 to 3 years. And a lot of times it's just taking that jump, that leap of faith, but not taking into account everything else that they need to consider. And so just knowing that you don't have to pay a lot of money to get key information and credible information. And that's what we're here to provide and really guide, because from there, we always think of that dream and we might not think that it's reachable. And I think a lot of our people in our community might not even have that confidence to think that they could be a business owner, whether they're young or older. So I would just know that age is just a number, right? But they can definitely access the information, and we're here to support them along.
So, quick little question that made me think while you were speaking, as far as that leap of faith. What would you recommend anybody considering being a business owner or maybe in a specific industry? What industry would be most beneficial for individuals to start a business to help the economy thrive? Like what is, considering the factors of difficulty, the leaps of faith that they need to take, the amounts of resources, like if we can maybe name one or two industries, where should somebody start a business right now?
Where my recommendations is always, where does your passion align? What are you passionate about? What is your experience in? What do you love doing? Because business takes money, time, and you might be your own boss, but a lot of times you work a lot more hours. And the reason I say that, what do you like? What do you love? What's your passion? Because then you are going to devote a lot of your time and attention and devotion to. And like I mentioned earlier, El Paso is a unique city, a unique community. We're growing, thriving, where we have families establishing here with our new healthcare and our dental school and our medical school. We have construction, service related. So, I just think El Paso is great for any line of business, as long as you have a great plan, you know what you need to put in place, and you have the experience to carry it out. Because it's very different once you're responsible for the whole operations and not just one part of it.
Very true. Thank you. Now, I know Leila had a loaded question for both of you that she prepared. So
it's just,
here we go.
I'm listening and I'm processing everything that you all are saying. At the same time as I'm thinking back to my experience in this community in economic development and what I've seen over the years, and having now a real great appreciation for when it comes to the Aerospace Center is university-led economic development, and how important that is for a community. And in the communities that I've seen across the country that do that, how successful they are. Because the university is leading with research and with great programming, and then the community kind of gets behind that. And that's something that now we are in this position. But then also thinking about how long we have, because we are a predominantly Hispanic community, minority, that entrepreneurial spirit is what has created so many of our small businesses, and why we're so largely dominated by so many small businesses. But fusing those two assets together now and really getting the small businesses, which have predominantly been service related, retail, service, restaurant and accommodations, to now into the next level is how do we get our businesses to really believe that there's opportunity for them here, and not just in aerospace and advanced manufacturing or in defense, but also in healthcare. We have so many healthcare needs, and in IT and broadband, with so much demand in digital and our digital needs. So like keeping that entrepreneurial spirit, but really challenging our business community into not just that initial instinct of, yeah, I want to participate and I want to do this in business, but how do you keep growing and advancing it and evolving and innovating in small business so that you can become, a medium business or even a large business. But even if you stay as a small business, that you're evolving with the growth and with the industries that are growing, and not just staying in in one sector or in one box. So what do you all see? The universities leading, has some really big vision that the community is getting behind. And then you, Mary Helen, you working directly with so many of these really small businesses, getting them to get them off the ground day one, but then also keeping them supported for a long-term vision.
So I'm really excited about the work that we're doing with the Aerospace Center and the Keck Center, sort of leading this initiative for a number of reasons. I feel like, to your point, it's increasingly important that small businesses kind of stay ahead of the trends in order to survive. And I think that's becoming increasingly clear in manufacturing, as you see the digital transformation of manufacturing in the same way that you saw offices do that many, many years ago, as you begin to see sort of the new technologies being put in place, whether it's additive manufacturing, robotics and automation being put in place on the shop floor. It's really important that manufacturers, to stay ahead of the curve, that they adopt new technologies, that they adopt new digital infrastructure as part of their growth strategy. But, as Mary Helen will tell you, that takes time and expertise, and there's 1,000 consultants that will want to charge you for that. And really, the university, through the Build Back Better and through other resources that we've developed through the EDA, really has the opportunity to provide sort of our technical expertise to build that support for small and medium manufacturers, particularly as it relates to aerospace and defense markets. And then the other part of that is that we have huge industry connections nationally, whether that's Lockheed Martin or Blue Origin, who are looking for new suppliers. So we're able to bring all of those to bear. And because of the type of research centers that we are, where we really are not looking just, at the existing trends in our sectors that we work in, but we're really looking 5 and 10 years out. So we can help sort of provide that sort of thinking for the small and medium manufacturers that, that you're just... I worked for my family's small business for 10 years. It was a job that I really loved in synchronous press and publishing. But I know with a small business, you're just looking to get through the day. You do you're the HR manager and the, editor and the packing books, and, you're doing every part of the business. It's often hard to think through kind of, how do I evolve? So we can really be the partner for small and medium manufacturers. And one of the things that makes me so excited about this work, having visited small and medium manufacturers for the last 2 years, we have incredible capabilities in this region, and companies that have evolved, that, most of them, as we've mentioned, that are Latino owned. Many of them are owned by women or women who are playing key leadership roles in the in company. And so, actually my favorite, Vargas Manufacturing, is owned by the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. So 3 generations of Latinas
awesome.
that are running that company, with the ex-husband who comes around for moral support, and a granddaughter who just arrived last year.
Wow.
So they're competing in a really tough industry. And so we have great examples in this region, and we just want to be a support for them to help them grow. And really, I think, you help them grow to 50, 100 people. Those are companies where the decision makers are here. Their love for the community is here. Their passion for this region is here. And so the more that you help those companies grow, the more investment you'll see over time in the growth and prosperity of our region.
Nice.
Awesome. And so for small businesses, Leila, it's very true. The needs change. As you get started and you're running your business, the needs change. And maybe you don't see that other opportunity because, like you mentioned, they're just trying to get through the day, right, Susie? Like they're just trying to get through the day and make sure they can meet payroll and all of that other good stuff. But sometimes, sitting down privately with someone, a business advisor like ourselves at the Women's Center, is, because it's a government program, we do have to respect and honor our confidentiality practices. We can't disclose and disclose anything about our clients, and we have to respect their privacy. And I think that's very important because so many people leave everything close to the belt because they're afraid of somebody running off with their idea. But I think it's important to have the federal programs in place so they can have a comfortable, confidential environment that they can discuss their business venture and maybe open their eyes to some different opportunities and then expose them to those opportunities. And maybe that can give them that idea to maybe do something different with their business and maybe access a different market. And being housed at the Hispanic Chamber, the main mission with our host organization, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, is to support the growth of our small minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. And so with our entrepreneurial technical assistance centers, we do have Terry Reed, which is our senior vice president and also our MBDA business director, program director. And she specializes in growing firms and getting them to the next stage. I had the pleasure of working with her in that department when it first started in 2008. So I do have some experience in working with growing firms, but at least our community at large has access to two key resources offered from our federal government. And I would like to thank our Congresswoman Escobar because she's always such a key advocate for our community and always supports us with our federal programs. So just wanted to thank her and for all of the support because it's very needed in our community and the support for our businesses.
I have one more thing that I want to bring it back to the topic, which is women in economic development, and something that Bianca and I have talked quite a bit about. And Susie, you mentioned like here in El Paso, we have so many women leading this, and it's unique and it's magic. And I think that there are certain things that we bring to this conversation and to this industry. And so as women leaders in this area, I think that there are things like we see the impact on families. It's not just the business impact, but the impact of families, of communities. And then we're also much more just naturally collaborative, I think. So I think those things really do contribute and are, again, another great asset. So what do you think are some of those traits that you have maybe found in the conversations or in the circles that you're in and making some of those decisions that you see those things, or you might bring that perspective that maybe some of our other peers or other communities don't, but some other folks in the same circles. So just wanted to ask that.
Sure. Mary Helen, do you want to start? I keep starting, and I think it's because why don't you start? I keep starting.
Oh, sure. No problem. Well, I do believe, women do have a different perspective. And going back to our Women Business Center program, the Small Business Administration started in the 50s. And that's as an agency, a federal agency to support the growth of small businesses. But 30 years after that, they saw that women needed different programs. And so they started the Office of Women's Business Ownership. Back in the 80s, it was 80 women business centers. And right now we have a total of 145. There's one in every state of the country now. And I believe it's because women relate better with other women. The flexibility, we know that women, they're working, they're have their families and they're juggling everything. Our services are available after 5 on weekends. And so I just know that, and we see it even in hearing women business owners in male dominated industries, even the conversations they have, The discussions they have with customers that are male, it's very challenging for women in business. And I believe in economic development because sometimes it is predominantly male. And so I just feel that by having these forums and us sharing our leadership skills and our practices just maybe gives that hope to other women to pursue their dreams, whether it is male dominated or whatnot. But you just have to learn how to be in those environments, right? And have the confidence to voice what your concerns are and just making sure that you're tactful and respectful with that. So I just wanted to share that, a little bit of background. And that's why we exist as a Women Business Center. And I'm really proud of the work that is done throughout the country because it's so many women and also their daughters and everyone else that follow behind them that want to pursue their entrepreneurial dream. And they do have services that they can access.
I would say, so we just went through this. Leila was a big part of it, this Build Back Better Regional Challenge competition. And one of the real focuses, which we were glad for, in the way that they evaluated all the applications. So there was 521 communities that participated or submitted applications. It was down selected to 60, and 21 communities won. But there was, in every conversation that we had with the EDA, they would ask about equity and what was our approach to equity. And I was always so proud to be on calls with them, like with our whole coalition. And I'm like, here's equity. Like, here we are. Like, everybody had, female leads of the organizations. You had Latinos leading organizations. In a way that you maybe didn't see with the other coalitions. I just think we as a community, if you look at sort of like our nation and our nation's economy, I really do think really critical to remaining competitive as a nation is our ability to tap the vast talent in the United States. And that includes women, that includes folks from rural neighborhoods of areas that include people from every zip code, from low socioeconomic backgrounds, Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans. And I just think that if we don't get that right, and if we continue, particularly in some industries like aerospace and defense, to sort of not build intentional pathways to prosperity for many people to access those sectors, we're going to really harm ourselves economically. And so I think that that's something that women do well, right? So I think that we are used to, as Leila mentioned, being collaborative and looking for opportunity that maybe other people are overlooking, and don't understand maybe somebody as having the talent, or maybe they just need a little extra help to get where they need to go. But really pushing and urging and bringing everybody to the table. I think that's what we're really good at, and that's what West Texas is really good at. That's what El Paso is good at, and I'm telling you, that's why we won that grant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that we covered quite a bit of ground. One question that we've been asking everybody, and it might go along with another one, the one that I had previously asked about your envisioning in the future, and hopefully we can attach to it a little bit. But it's and it's for both of you as well, just because we have a very unique female perspective with things. If you had a magic wand as far as the women in economic development and the male-dominated industries, right? You working in aerospace and Mary Helen working with the business sector, what would you use that wand for to contribute to equity? What would be the solution that you would bring to the table if you could do anything you wanted?
I think with my magic wand, and we're talking about women, I would say that magic wand is that negative part of we always have self-doubt, right? We always question ourselves sometimes. We always question our decision making. Did I make the right choice? Did I do the right thing? And I think with my magic wand, I would want to eliminate that from women. And really, there's also cultural barriers too. Why are you going to go do that? And why are you going to be working? Or why are you going to start a business? Or whatever the question might be. And I guess that would be a part of my magic wand. Do what really is in your heart, what you're passionate about. Don't be afraid of learning, because we all learn, right? And, and not being afraid of, yes, if you fail, you just have to get right back up and keep trying. And I just think it's up to their own destiny. They're in control of their own destiny. If they want to be a global contractor, then great. And I just really love to put El Paso businesses on the map and really showcase our business community, because, of course, sometimes we're overlooked as a community, right? It's always the Austin, Dallas, the San Antonio, Houston. And we want to make sure that we share that El Paso has very credible, thriving, and successful businesses that can compete. So I guess that would be my magic wand wish.
Eliminate imposter syndrome, 100%. And even as we do grow and have more women participating in these male-dominated industries, I can tell you, and I'm friends with some of them, is even though they've broken through that barrier, whether they're engineers or scientists or surgeons, there is still a little bit of doubt, and one can be sitting at a table and still withhold raising her hand about an idea for a plan, or and it's like, you have the best degree out of all of them and most experience out of it, but it's still it's still there. It's almost it's like genetic almost, right? And then of course you're right, Mary Helen, about the cultural backlash that you sometimes get if you happen to choose something that's against the norm, whether it's starting a business or going into a male-dominated industry. That gasp from grandma, I still get it. You know what I mean? So how about you, Susie?
Well, so I think I have two answers to that. So I think actually what we're doing right now is a lot of magic. I think I think I feel that in many ways because nobody else is doing it. So you go to any of our research labs, you will see students working in our labs that don't look like the aerospace and defense sector. If you go into any of our small and medium manufacturers in the region, they don't look like who are currently contributing to the aerospace and defense supply chain. And we're working every day to change that. It's hard work. It's certainly not magic, but I think it stands out because it's not really being done in many ways. And then I think I am a mother of a daughter, a very strong daughter, and two lovely young men. And I've always felt like my work is less to do with my daughter and more to do with my sons, in terms of building equity and building young men who appreciate and embrace female leadership and embrace female talent. And so that's where I try and focus my work.
Awesome.
But yes, we also need to build up our young women and make sure that they're appreciated and know to own their own power and their own talent. But we also got to make sure those boys make a little room for everybody to share.
That makes so much sense too, because it's that is the counterpart that we're trying to convince. And Leila always mentions too, it's like we need male cheerleaders, we need yell leaders to be part of this movement and to not hate on men and not try to trample them either. Just making a level playing field for all of us, and especially with the consideration of equity. I love that.
And I think if you look, a lot of this kind of goes back to kind of rational, like if you look at the most productive firms, as has been studied, they're diverse firms, right? Mm-hmm. They have female leadership. They have folks from lots of different perspectives and ethnicities and economic backgrounds. And those firms end up being more productive, particularly in the startup space, than other firms. But we don't build enough space, and we don't really build a lot of our systems to support that type of, the kind of intentional, that intention that comes with really building a diverse workforce that creates a more, productive company and makes you more money. So it's not just good for the world, but it's also good for your bottom line.
It is. And it's almost like diversity you can look at it from the surface level of a diverse group of people that you can see. You have, different ethnicities, different genders, but it really comes down to problem solving diversity. These individuals bring a completely different problem solving vision, perspective. And if they can solve a problem, especially after you want to talk like certain socioeconomic barriers, you want to talk what they've probably had to deal with the oppression in terms of, minority or being a woman, they've got the experience with finding a solution. Why wouldn't you want to have that on your team, right? Like that's just how I've started to really see things. But I think that's a really great way to end it. Problem solving, diversity, equitable men, male cheerleaders, and bring it all together. Do you have anything else, Leila?
No, that was it. This has been a great session. And so thank you both for sharing a little bit about your story and your work and what your vision is and getting, allowing our listeners to hear a little bit more about the community. So, we've created this podcast and we talk a lot about workforce and the economy, but these series that we're doing this month with women here in El Paso, I think is a really great window into our region and hearing all these different perspectives. So I think it's going to be a really great, we're going to get a lot of folks listening in and learning about West Texas and El Paso. And so I thank you all for participating.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and always great to hear from Mary Helen and all the great work they're doing over at the Hispanic Chamber.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies, for allowing me to partake in this panel discussion. And we're here to help, so don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
We're eager to hear your feedback. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn and let it out. We don't always have a choice in the situations we face, but you do have a choice in subscribing to Solutions. Join the Workforce Situation Room on your favorite podcast platform and hit subscribe, where you'll find a solution to every situation. The best way to serve the community is to get real and understand the pulse of the Borderplex. Till next month.